they are not as good when he's on the court. And he does clog some things up for them, even if he brings that defensive presence that you need him to. Should the Phoenix Suns sit their highest paid player, and could it help them out? I feel like it sucks that we have to have this conversation. It's Erik and Steven from PHNX Suns, but Bradley Beal was out of the last game that the Phoenix Suns just lost due to left calf injury management. It feels like he's 1 game on, 1 game off, or a couple games on, a couple games off at this point. And Steven, this is a Suns team that is desperate for consistency. So before we get into the numbers of it and maybe some of the more details as to why maybe this should or should not happen, when I say the Phoenix Suns should shut down Bradley Beal for the rest of the season, what's your initial reaction?
It's an adamant, emphatic no.
Okay.
I'm not one to cuss much, but that would prompt me to insert swear words here to justify why I'm so emphatically on the no side of that. Because if you just put $50 million of your total cap on the sideline and it's not because of injury, just put them on ice, who's supposed to make up for that? And who can sustainably do that? And in addition to that, this team was built off of him being able to add to what Kevin Durant and Devin Booker do. Sometimes even allow for them to play off of him, but more so the other way around. And the fact that no one else can consistently bring that, in addition to how leaned upon he is on the defensive end of the floor for the players that get actual rotation minutes, he just brings too much. He's just too relied upon for him to be put on ice.
He is really relied upon. He's relied upon too much to be that perimeter defensive stalwart, their quote-unquote best perimeter defender, at least the one that they play. But I know that you pulled some numbers, and I know a lot of people have pulled some numbers, and while, Beal's the highest paid player, and in theory he fills this role for you, and I don't fully disagree with you when you say they shouldn't shut him down, but it is something that's been creeping up in the back of my mind, because there are some numbers that prove that when Bradley Beal is off the court and Kevin Durant are on the court, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are on the court, the Suns are better in that latter version than the former.
It's truly, honestly, is night and day with the numbers. And this is per cleaning the glass, which extrapolates garbage time from those minutes. So with all three of those players in the lineup this season, 1,272 minutes played. They have a 118 offensive rating, which ranks in the 76th percentile. They have a 119.6 defensive rating, which ranks in the 14th percentile for this season. And that net rating, non-garbage time net rating is minus 1.6, 46th percentile. Not good, not pretty at all in any capacity. No way to justify how that could potentially be wrong. Matches the eye test, all of those things. You take Bradley Beal out of the lineup. This is, again, non-garbage time. Shout out cleaning the glass. The Suns have a 120.7 offensive rating, 87th percentile, 114.7 defensive rating, 52nd percentile. And they have a non-garbage time net of +6, which ranks in the 80th percentile. That's in 1,355 possessions this season.
So I'm not a numbers guy, but better without Beal.
Yeah.
Okay, so then my follow-up question to you, because I understand the semantics of it all, right? It's the same reason why Bradley Beal should never come off the bench, right, at the beginning of the season, and something that I even said never was going to happen, even if I wanted to see it, because of the payroll, because of the, he has a history in this league. He got a no-trade clause for a reason. He's a veteran, and theoretically, he should be one of your 3 best players. He should be your 3rd best player. Why? Why, when the numbers bear proof that you're better without this guy, is it so emphatic that you need to keep him in the rotation and around?
There's a dependence factor in that. Can you viably expect for a Bull to take on the brunt of his offensive output in a sustainable manner, or insert other Suns guard player here, Grayson Allen? Like, can you expect for those people to?
I think what I'm looking at is we're begging for Ryan Dunn minutes. I know they don't play the same position, but Ryan Dunn would be then the perimeter defender that in theory you tap into. Of course, that's a different story. What's going on with him?
But hold that thought, because I want to go piece by piece. So with the Ryan Dunn part, for example, Bradley Beal did not play last night, right? How many minutes, or seconds rather, did Ryan Dunn play?
40 seconds.
Correct. So does that mean that Bud is going to actually play Ryan Dunn? It's certainly not a given thing.
Sure.
You feel me?
Yeah,
So
100%.
is it worth it if that's not even what you're going to actually be getting out of it based off of what we've seen from the last, 3.5, 4 weeks of play now?
Completely fair.
Okay, so for Colin, you want to ask about Colin?
I mean, and so I'm going down the line like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Obviously, it would be more minutes for Grayson, for Royce, people who can pseudo play that position and who would be asked to guard these perimeter players. You can't play Book any more minutes than what you've already been playing him. There has been a standing on a table and asking for Colin Gillespie. I think that's a natural fit. I'm not saying it's perfect. This team's screwed either way. But it's just wondering, can you get the most juice out of the squeeze?
I think you can. I just don't see a picture why you can't have Beal in the lineup and still get to those other things.
Right.
It's just a matter of actually doing that. There is plenty of opportunity based off of what we've seen, based off of what players are bringing and what they aren't bringing to the table. One thing that no one's bringing to the table outside of Kevin Durant in the main rotation, defense. And that's one thing that you see from Colin Gillespie. He's not the greatest defender. He's also not the biggest defender. But one thing he knows how to do is compete and stay in front of the ball. You add that in addition to the height and the size and the athleticism that Ryan Dunn brings, I just don't see why you can't find a pocket of time for these players in the rotation. Some games it might be a little bit more minutes to others. Some games it might be less. But where all of these pieces that we're speaking to can find a niche in the main rotation. I just don't see why, especially for a team that's underwhelming as they are right now.
Well, right. But I think, it kind of plays into and against your point with we haven't seen Ryan Dunn when Beal's been out. Therefore, you can't assume that he's in. We've seen the numbers. You see the numbers. We haven't seen them be able to get the most juice out of the squeeze with Bradley Beal, right? So the same, and again, I think at the end of the day, the moral of the story is that this is a flawed team with a flawed concept, flawed coaching, flawed rotation, flawed fit on the roster. But you haven't seen, like, in theory, you can get the most out of Beal. We are in March.
Yeah.
And that theory is not happening. The reality is happening. The reality is happening is that they are not as good when he's on the court. And he does clog some things up for them, even if he brings that defensive presence that you need him to, even though he shouldn't be needed to do that. I also think a factor in all of this is a team who really struggles to find consistency. And they're 5 games under 500. They're desperate for a play-in spot. They need to capitalize consistently. And 2 games ago, after beating Dallas, Bradley Beal was asked about playing Memphis. And he said, we're excited. We need to bring it. This is a big opportunity. And
They
Bradley
said
Beal was out.
something along the lines of them turning the corner or they're not looking back or something like
Correct.
that. Yeah.
And they didn't play. And there is something to be said about a team who does not have chemistry in March to have a main cog, a starting piece now, go in and out due to left calf injury management over and over again. I think that is certainly a mental factor here.
It definitely is, but I take it back even further. Remember we spoke with Tim Legler in November, and he said that one of the biggest things for this team to solve, and which is why he felt like Bud was brought in, was how can they get the most out of Bradley Beal. No disrespect to Frank Vogel, and this is verbatim from Tim Legler, but he's not trying to disrespect Vogel, but he couldn't figure out how to get the most out of Beal in addition to Booker and Durant. He felt like that's why the swap for Bud, someone who's had experience doing that, made sense. And here we are in March, and some of that is because Beal cannot consistently be in the lineup to implement and work out the kinks with any type of process they want with all 3 of those players, but like it still hasn't looked like they found a formula for those 3. No. And that's because of the systems that are set up, and that's the way that things are being taught and preached and the principles and all of that. It's a lot of different things with that, but I think it's a lost cause right now in this moment, and a large portion of that is because of the availability or lack thereof of Beal with Booker and Durant on the floor.
And even when Beal is available, you've seen him initiating offense more as of late. And that's something that it steps on Devin Booker. It steps on Kevin Durant. I think back to when he got traded here and who's going to guard us, right? Oh, it's not going to be your turn, my turn. We're going to be able to flow and mesh together. Yeah. And it's just not true. And you can just say true or false with me here. The only way the Suns can quote unquote save their season is they get the most, they extract the most out of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant.
Yeah, true.
And does Bradley Beal allow you to do that?
Yes, true. He does.
He does allow you to do that.
He does allow you to do that, but he has to be featured the right way. And that's been my premise since the Big 3 thing was put together. It's like, okay, so how do you figure out how to get the most out of all 3 of those players? Obviously, you're going to stagger them. That makes things easier. But at the end of the day, you're planning on when the moments are the highest as in terms of stakes, regular season or playoffs, you plan on having all three of these players on the court. Is someone standing in the corner twiddling their thumbs, maybe holding some attention, but not really doing anything? Or are they all being involved in actions to create things?
Right.
And that's something we saw with Bud when he was with the Bucks. He had a template for offense in the fourth quarters and clutch time with all three of his best players. And they were able to get a lot of efficient offense, one of the better clutch teams in the league because of that. We have not seen that surface in any capacity. In addition to the offense, the numbers are the numbers. They're elite offensively. They had no choice but to be when you have this talent on this roster.
Right.
But it should be more sustained in my opinion, regardless of what a defense might be doing. And I think the lack of process with all three of them on the floor, why is Bill initiating over Devin Booker or Kevin Durant, who are more efficient as play starters? And why is he not spaced off a second side, using more movement actions and things like that?
Well, it does lead us back to this conversation that we've been having on our PHNX Suns post-game live shows that you can find all right here on PHNX Sports when you hit that subscribe button. A lot of this does stem from Mike Budenholzer. It is a flawed roster. It is not the best build, but they can get so much more. I think there's one last thing for me that makes me think about the possibility about shutting Bradley Beal down, and it's a hypothetical thing where you're going to be trying to move him this summer. And
well, I would hope so.
You should be.
I would hope so because
trying to.
I was left feeling certain ways when I found out they did not even
approach him
about would he waive his no trade clause to go to insert city here.
Sure. And part of that might be because insert city here was not existing because insert city here didn't want him.
Yeah, that's possible too.
One of the biggest things with Beal is his availability, and to push a muscle injury like a calf injury, which we've seen, linger for a long time now, not just with him, but with a lot of athletes in a lot of different sports, is shutting him down for the season the best way to preserve his value. Because we have seen him have good offensive outputs to where maybe a team like Orlando, who is completely faltering at the end of the season because of their lack of offense, maybe the only thing stopping them from trading for Bradley Beal is the fact that he doesn't play every night. Shut him down, say you're getting right, you're getting healthy for the summer, and then you either move him based off of that, or he's now healthier going into your next season if you are stuck with him. I think that to me is kind of that last piece that might push it into, especially if they're out of the play-in race, if things get really bad, I do think you need to shut him down because the last thing you need is Bradley Beal torn blank. Bradley Beal out for 6 months blank. And now you go into the summer negotiating with a $50 million contract with a no-trade clause of an injured player who's in his 30s.
Yeah, I hear and understand that part too, but my thing is, does that change the perception of Bradley Beal? Because he's shown to be someone that's in and out of the lineup and some relevance of consistency over the last, 5-6 seasons now?
Yeah.
Like this doesn't hurt the assessment of him from the rest of the league because this is the trend that we've been assessing for years now.
I would say this doesn't, but one step worse does. Right. There's a difference between he's played more games this year than he did last year. There's a difference between in and out of the lineup and score first guard who's losing a little bit of his athleticism and he gets a little older, has a major injury because he's compensating for a lingering one, which is something that we see in athletes when you have a lower body injury. You overcompensate with the other leg and it catches up to you. You guys let us know what you think. I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation as the Phoenix Suns continue to struggle coming off a loss to the Memphis Grizzlies. Now they take on the Houston Rockets. If you didn't know, we do pregame and postgame shows for every single game, no matter how depressing, right here on PHNX Suns. You can follow us at PHNX_Suns. You can follow Steven at StevenPG3. You can follow me at Erik Ruby. Of course, hit that subscribe button. Turn notifications on for Suns, Cardinals, Diamondbacks, Arizona State, U of A, Rising, Mercury content, all right here in one convenient location. Nobody in the Valley doing it like us. Make sure you are a part of our community and make sure that if you have a thought, a disagreement, an agreement, whatever it is, drop that comment, hit that like, and we'll talk to you guys soon.